Okay, welcome. We've got Jenny Froud on the line right in front of me right now. I've known Jenny for a few years, to say the least, from Sporting Wheelies and Disabled Association in Queensland. And I'm going to ask Jenny just a few questions to explain who Wheelies are, what they do, and what some of the challenges they might have as well. So, hello, Jenny.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. So, can you tell me who are Sporting Wheelies and what's your role within Sporting Wheelies exactly, Jen?
Yeah, well, Sporting Wheelies and Disabled Association is one of 4 peak bodies in the state of Queensland that provides sport, recreation and fitness opportunities for people with a physical disability and vision impairment. Our mission is actually to enhance the lives of people with a disability through community engagement and education, and that's largely where I sit, sport and healthy activity. So as well as being a direct deliverer of services to people with a disability, we actually also work with mainstream sport and recreation organisations to help them to understand how they can be more inclusive of people of all abilities so that people with disabilities have a wide range of choice in terms of sport and active recreation.
Excellent. About your role, what's your role there at Wheelies, Jen?
My role here is as the State Coordinator for Disability Education and for Sports Connect. So within our Disability Education and Sports Connect team, we now have 5 people, and our role is actually to work with state sporting organisations, as I said, helping them to understand how they can tweak what they're doing to become more inclusive of people of all different abilities and more welcoming so that people are actually choosing them as a sport. But we also work with regional communities, and we help organisations within regional communities to understand how they can make links between the sports sector and the disability sector. So we work directly with disability service organisations in those regional communities because they're the key. They really are the key in helping people with disabilities to understand that sport's a real choice for them and that they can be involved in a number of different ways.
Can you give people a bit of a snapshot, because people will be seeing this from all over the world? How big is Queensland? How far do you reach?
Quite large. Probably if you drove from the bottom of Queensland right up to the tip, you're probably talking around probably about 3,500 kilometres if you were going to take the coast road, and that's just from the bottom to the top. Then also we go out west as well. So if you were to drive, for example, from Brisbane, which is on the coast, out to Quilpie, which is near the border with the Northern Territory and with South Australia, you're probably talking about a 14 to 16 hour drive there out west as well. So we do stretch far north and far west. And our population is spread. A lot of our population is in the southeast corner. However, we do have significant regional communities all along the coast, and we have significant populations stretching inland now as well with the mining boom up here in Queensland.
Yeah, well, that's quite important to point out to people, because Queensland is bigger than some of the countries that people are in who are watching this. So, just to give some of the challenges you have is the pure geography of where you're at. Now, you explain a little bit about your role is to connect sporting organisations and disability sector groups together. Could you explain a little bit more about the process of how does that happen?
Well, what we do when we're working in regional communities is we go into the community and we do a little bit of research. So we take what we call a bit of a helicopter view, where we actually sit back and look at everything that's already happening in that community, identify some key people, some key organisations, but also some key champions that exist within the region. And then we bring in new organisations as well. So we run Sports Connect forums, community forums, where we bring all those organisations together and get them talking. So it really is about opening up the conversations, and from there some amazing things can happen. To give you an example, we have a region here called Moreton Bay, which is just north of Brisbane. But within Moreton Bay, it's quite a large region. It has 3 major population centres. We brought all of those people together in May this year. And from that, we've had some great partnerships happening already between some sports and disability service providers, because suddenly they've seen other organisations that exist within their community who are keen to do exactly what they're trying to do, and now they're able to talk to each other. And we just sit in there, I guess, as a bit of a linking role or a bit of a brokering role, helping to keep that conversation going until it becomes a sustainable partnership.
Yeah. Now, it sounds easier said than done, I know for a fact. So you get people together, great thing, in different regions, people from disability sector, people from sports sector together. What are some of the challenges around actually making those connections and creating opportunities for people?
They're two very different sectors. That's probably the biggest challenge. The sports sector, as people would know, is largely a voluntary sector. There are some paid staff operating in sport, however they exist mainly at national and sometimes at state level, very rarely in local clubs. Most of our local clubs are run by volunteers. And so you're looking at people who are increasingly having less time to spend on their voluntary occupation, which is sport, because obviously our demands of our workplaces are getting higher. So we need to make sure that we work from where they're at and work within the capacity that they've got. Sport also largely, for the most part, not in all cases, but largely exists outside of working hours, because that's generally when the community wants to go and play sport. So we're talking after work hours and on weekends. The disability sector is almost the opposite. The disability sector is a paid sector, but it is actually governed by funding restrictions. So there are certain ways that services are funded and can provide those services to people with disability. There are variations on that, but a large part of the disability sector operates Monday to Friday from either 9 to 3 or 9 to 5. And to fund support for people outside of those hours is challenging. It's not unheard of, but it is challenging. And so getting these two sectors together to operate in completely different timeframes is probably our first biggest hurdle.
Yeah. How do you, one of the challenges is trying to make these sustainable so it doesn't depend on you. Now, you bring people together, but how do you know they're going to stay together and create sustainable opportunities over time?
We used a process that was actually developed at national level. This gentleman, I don't know if you know him, he's called Pete Downs.
No, it's rubbish.
It was the RAT charter process, and we actually find that process very valuable for working with the organisations, both on what Pete called the supply side, which is sport, and the disability side, which is the demand side. So we actually go through a process with the organisations called a RAT process, or using a readiness assessment tool as such, which is really about going out and meeting with key people in that organisation, right from executive management level through to middle management and coordination level down to operational staff. That gives us a really true picture of how that organisation operates and helps us to identify the strengths that they have in terms of linking people with disabilities to sport, any sort of challenges that they may have, the opportunities that exist within their area, and any threats to that partnership. We then feed that back to the organisation and help them then to think about what are some strategies that they can come up with to work on over the first 12 months, and we put that together in a Sports Connect charter. Yeah. The organisations who've got to charter stage have said to us that they find that a really valuable document to keep them on track in their first 12 months of really looking at addressing inclusion within either their sports club or within the disability service itself.
So the charter is like a mini plan, isn't it? And so do they find that do they stick to the plan? Do they manage to complete all parts of the charter in the year? How well do they progress along that journey?
What we've been finding is we encourage people to pick their easy wins in the first 12 months. What we're trying to do is help these organisations to gain a bit of confidence in themselves in this process and in the partnering process. So we encourage them to pick things that they know that they can achieve in those first 12 months. To our surprise, what has been happening is that they've been achieving those quite early and then taking on some extra things. So they've gone above and beyond the ones that we've got, above and beyond what's in their charter. We now have some organisations that are in their second or third year with us, and they're actually asking to go through the RAT and charter process again as a bit of a self-assessment to see where they've come.
So they sort of repeat the process. It's like a rinse and repeat kind of process, and hopefully they've made some progress in between.
Yes, definitely. And so far, all the organisations that have got to charter level, when we've reviewed them, they actually have improved from where they started in the program.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. Well, we'll include some more information about all that in the site itself, so people can have a look at the sorts of tools that you're talking about as well. what was your, just finally, Jen, what's the best piece of advice you would give to people looking to create opportunities? I know it's a bit of a big question, but if you could try and give us a kind of succinct, what's the best bit of advice for people who are looking to create more opportunities for people with disability?
Probably what I would say to them is work from where you're at. Don't try to go for the pie in the sky straight up. Is really be honest with yourself about where your organisation's at and be open to conversations with people who operate in the opposite sector. Because that's what it's all about. It's actually just being open to a conversation, knowing that your sector has something to offer or your club or your organisation has something to offer, sitting down at the table and meeting someone halfway. They're the partnerships that we find are actually working the best.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jen. That's very good. Like I say, I'll include some information more about Wheelies and about the process you've just outlined for us on the site as well, and hopefully we can get a couple more interviews with a couple of people who work with you up at Wheelies there, and maybe even later on down the track some of the regional people as well. Further down, that'll be quite good there.
Excellent.
All right, I'll say thank you very much for this particular interview, Jen, and I will catch you very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.